Awesome. Well, I've started the recording, and Andrew, I wanted to thank you for joining us today. I'm Kristen Orlando, even though it says Tony, one of the co-founders of DEXA Plus and DEXASCAN.com, and we have Andrew. And Andrew, I'm probably going to screw up your last name, so if I do, I apologize.
No worries.
Kusovschi, yeah, from Level Up Coaching and Level Up Body. And if you are on YouTube or on Instagram, you've probably seen Andrew and some of the amazing transformations he has done for his client. And we've connected through DEXASCAN.com. And really, you're all about DEXA and the importance of it and being the gold standard in terms of making sure that we have that body composition and we see set a baseline and what that follow-up is. And would love for you to kind of walk through your program and everything that you offer, so that we can share that with our clientele, because a lot of people come into DEXASCAN.com because they've heard of a DEXA, they want to get that gold standard, know where they are, but then they walk out and they're not always 100% sure of what to do next. And I think that
Yeah.
you and your team really offer that. So if you want to just jump in here, I see you're sharing your screen and kind of talk
Yeah.
about your experience and everything that you offer. We'd love to hear about it.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that. Basically what I would like to do today is not only show you how we help our clients, but I also want to provide some value today to you guys as well. And I think the most important thing is I will help you out. I will give you some value, but the most important thing for me is that you find the low-hanging fruit for yourself. Okay. And you'll find some things that resonate and you're like, hey, you know what? That sounds cool. Maybe you jot some things down, but I want you to find the one low hanging fruit so that you can go away from this webinar and actually implement. Because for me, it's not about giving you so many different things to do. It's really making sure that you actually do the things that we mentioned. So the biggest mistake that I see all the time is people will get all this information, right? They'll go on ChatGPT, maybe they'll research on Google, but the action is where people struggle. So I want to make sure that instead of jotting down everything that I say today, just figure out what resonates the most and then apply that. Maybe you're going to hear something about training and you're not doing that with your training. Go ahead and run with that. Maybe it's something to do with your nutrition habits. Go ahead and implement that. Just don't take too many things all at once and then sit after this webinar overwhelmed of where to start. Okay. So my name's Andrew. I run a company called LevelUp Body. This is where we help business owners and professionals, just like yourselves that are probably watching this. We help you guys create custom solutions to really get in great shape. And the most important part about that is making sure that you're in a position to sustain the results. Because if you get quick results, let's say you're, I don't know, doing a challenge of some sort and you have the results are fast, you may not have a game plan to actually keep the results long term. So my main objective is to help you better understand how to get from point A to point B, but also stay there long term. Because it doesn't matter what you achieve in just a couple of months. It really matters where you are year after year. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide here. I want to start by showing you a little example because there is a common misconception when it comes to body composition changes. So if we take an example of an individual who weighs 200 or 210 pounds, and we help them lose 15 pounds. Let's say each individual now weighs 195 pounds. They've dropped 15 pounds, but even though the number on the scale is the same, they may have very different physiques. And that's what we noticed with our coaching program was individuals would come to us not because they've never lost weight in their life. They've actually lost weight multiple times, but they've never achieved the physique that they wanted, or simply they weren't able to keep it. So in this example, what happened if these individuals look very different? One of them essentially maintained his muscle mass and the other didn't. So if an individual dropped 15 pounds of body fat, but the other one lost 15 pounds of body fat and muscle, well, that individual might end up skinny fat, right? They're not going to end up where they want to be. And that isn't necessarily healthy to be skinny fat. It's not terrible, but it's probably not what you want to work so hard for. Okay. So the goal of fat loss is not to lose as much weight as possible. The goal is to lose as much of the right tissue as possible while protecting the tissue we actually want to keep, bringing the body fat percentage down, maintaining and potentially increasing muscle, getting stronger, improving cardiovascular health, really just making sure that you're getting healthier. And that's why connecting with DEXA is really helpful, because we actually have an objective way to measure this. We know that individuals are losing fat, gaining muscle, and we're not just fixated on the number on the scale. And you'll see later on today, I have some slides of individuals that have gone through our program. Some of them weigh the exact same. But when you look at their photos, they look very different. Their DEXASCAN reports are very different. But if we just looked at the weight on the scale, it's kind of deceiving. Okay. So before we get into all of this, I'm sure you guys already know, but if you don't already, if you're here, I want to make sure that you're in a position to actually take what's applicable to you, but also not deviate from what works for you already. Because maybe you've hired a trainer in the past. Maybe you've tried cutting carbs. Maybe you've tried tracking calories. Maybe they worked. Maybe they haven't. But I want to make sure that you're in a position where you find something specifically for you that actually works despite the season that you're in. Maybe you're traveling a lot. Maybe work is really busy. If we can create a solution that works specifically for you, that's going to be the most helpful thing. And I know the annoying part is that you're probably not someone who struggles with work ethic, right? Most clients that come to us, they like to work hard. They like to be pushed. But the thing is, life gets in the way, right? Managing teams, having a family, building a career, you know how to execute, but the fitness piece gets put on the back burner. So I want to make sure that we can help you get in shape, lose the body fat, and not have to start over again. Okay. So what we'll do then, if this resonates with you, then you definitely are in the right room, of course. But there are 3 things that I want to touch on that we can cover today. So the first one will be what your scale is not telling you about your body. Number 2 is how to lose body fat without dieting off the muscle mass. And number 3 is how we build a system that still works when you travel, when you work long hours, and life gets in the way. And towards the end, I'll show you our 5 lose 5% body fat, or you don't pay guarantee that we use with our clients, just so you understand how the DEXA partnership works as well. That sound good? Perfect. So is it all right if I keep going? We're good?
Keep going.
Perfect. So when we said athlete shape, I want to make sure we're clear about this, because I'm not saying everyone needs to have a 6-pack, right? We don't need to have a 6-pack. That's not even the definition of being in great shape. You can have a 6-pack and feel terrible, right? But athlete shape doesn't mean you're a professional athlete. It doesn't mean that you have a 6-pack. Essentially what it means is that you look like you train and your body performs like you train. That's an important measurement of progress, because if you have one without the other, if you look great but you feel bad, we're not checking all the boxes. So this means you have enough muscle, you look strong, you feel strong, your body fat percentage is low enough that you can actually see all that hard-earned muscle, and your cardiovascular health is in a place where basic tasks don't necessarily feel hard. Mobility, that's very overlooked a lot of the times because it's stuff that we don't necessarily like. We skip our warm-ups, we skip our cool downs, but you need to have enough mobility that putting your shoes on doesn't hurt, right? It's things like that on an everyday basis that used to be easy, sometimes feel hard. So that's why we train mobility, okay? And strength, of course, you understand that strength and muscle is important, but we need to make sure that's functional strength, because if it's functional strength, then you're actually strong outside of the gym. If you can bench 300 pounds, but your back hurts when you're lifting a box, we need to figure out why that's happening. Okay. So that's what athlete shape means to me. There are different measurements or different characteristics that we work towards. It's not just, hey, you look great, you're in athlete shape. We have to actually meet these expectations so that we can get to a point where our quality of life improves. And that's what LevelUp Body does. We've now worked with hundreds of business owners, hundreds of professionals, and pretty early on, I realized that it's not just about working out anymore, right? Everyone knows what to do. Eat more or eat less, move more, right? You know that vegetables are healthy. You know that you should probably exercise more. But the problem is that most programs, most maybe challenges that you've done, they don't necessarily understand your specific lifestyle. The programs are made for individuals that may have a very normal setup. They assume your sleep is good. They assume that you're eating all your meals from home. They assume you don't travel as much as you do. Maybe no kids, maybe no work dinners. This makes it really tough because then you do these programs and you feel like you can never be in shape. So we started building a system around this type of person's life. The training, the nutrition, the cardio, the mobility, the recovery plans, all of that designed for an individual that works a lot, is super busy, and just wants to figure it out. And now with DEXA, it gives us a much more important base measurement where we can actually see, is this individual progressing at the rate and at the level that we want based on their body composition, not just the scale. So there's something I think a lot of people don't realize as well. That's essentially a KPI. It's a metric that we use. It's a key performance indicator that we need to have, that DEXA provides and helps us better understand where you're at physically, but also helps us better understand what we should prioritize. And scales don't do that, right? How much body fat you have, how much lean tissue you have, where you're storing your fat, or whether the 5 pounds you lost came from fat, muscle, water, or a combination. And this is why we've always used DEXA with our clients, because we know that, hey, body measurements are important, photos are important, but if we can actually have a tangible piece of information that says this person dropped 8% body fat, they gained 5 pounds of muscle, that goes a long way besides just saying, hey, you lost 15 pounds of fat and you look great. And this is why it's important to better understand your body and utilize these things. Okay. So body fat percentage, like it shows here, shows us where we actually are starting for individuals that come in and start with a DEXA scan. Maybe you've done one already and you know exactly where you're at. Your fat mass, how many pounds of fat are we dealing with? What do we need to do to reduce that number? Lean mass, how much lean tissue do we have and how much of it can we protect while the fat comes off? And in many cases, we can gain some as well. And visceral fat information, right? Where is that body fat actually being carried? This is one of the numbers that we want to basically eliminate as soon as possible. It's a metric that if our client has a high amount of visceral fat, we want to see that number come down as fast as possible. And the reason being is because that's a dangerous fat, right? It's the fat that impacts longevity. So we want to make sure we can fix that as soon as possible. And the only way you know that essentially is through a DEXA. Okay. Can dive into the next slide here. So in addition to DEXA, what we use with our clients too is a waist to height ratio. It's a great way to check where you're at any point in time. It's very fast. It takes 1 minute to do. It's really simple, but it's a fast way to better understand where you're at. You basically take your waist circumference and divide it by your height. Just make sure you use the same units for both. So if your waist is 36 inches and maybe your height is 72, if you're at 0.5, well, you're in a range that is considered increased risk. Okay, the ranges that we want to be in are between 0.4 and 0.49. If you're between 0.5 and 0.59, it's essentially increased risk. And if you're above 0.6, we definitely want to prioritize getting that number down. This works way better than BMI. It really tells you exactly where you're at because BMI essentially puts you into a category. So if you have a lot of muscle mass and your BMI is high, it doesn't mean you're unhealthy. Okay, so a goal for you should be to try to keep your waist below roughly half of your height. That's a good metric to have. Your waist circumference below half of your height. Okay. This is another thing when people come to us with their BMI. Two people could have the same BMI. Okay, they could even weigh the same amount, but if one is storing significantly more fat around their abdomen, the trajectory that we take these individuals on are quite different. And the reason being is because one may just be an athlete. They have a ton of muscle, like I mentioned, but maybe the other one is a beginner and we need to prioritize fat loss. Okay. So that is another metric that we can use. And from here, we want to make sure that your goals are aligned, right? You're not just focusing on, I want to lose weight anymore, but I want you to start thinking about these metrics that we discussed so far. Your body fat percentage goal, your muscle mass goal. How do you feel? Because when it comes to muscle gain and muscle preservation, it's not necessarily just about aesthetics. Muscle is such an important tissue in the body that it's not just about making you look better. right? It's important for longevity. It's important for utilizing calories more. So instead of focusing on just, I want to build muscle and look good, we want to focus on, hey, managing glucose better. That's what muscle can do. Because when your muscles contract, they can increase your glucose uptake, which is so important because muscle is one of those things that if you don't use it, as you know, you lose it. But the compound effect of losing muscle goes more than just gaining body fat or looking different. It actually has a physiological effect on your body, which all of these things, like your glucose, your insulin, all of these things change. So we need to make sure that you're in a position to not only preserve, but build as much as we can. Okay. Some of the recommendations I'm going to give you will make much more sense shortly. But some of these things that we see a lot of the times, people mess them up, right? Monday comes around and you want to lose some body fat, you want to get in good shape, and you do things that look something like this, right? Calories get cut, carbs are low, and maybe you skip breakfast, you start fasting, or you do 5 cardio sessions a week. You can't be doing this because you'll always get stuck in this cycle. When every part of your life feels like a chore, feels miserable, you're not going to be able to sustain it long term. And that's a struggle I see a lot of the times. You get some results because doing any of these things will help, right? You will start to see some progress. It's just the way it is. But how long is that going to sustain? And how long can you white knuckle your way through to that? Because what is more important for you? Are you trying to push your body to see results quickly? Or are you in a position where you don't want to have to worry about your weight ever again? That's where we want to get our clients, right? We want to get you to a point where weight loss is something you don't think about because now you're in a maintenance mode. You know how to maintain. You've created a strategy that actually works, not just for 12 weeks, but forever, because now you're in a position where this is a lifestyle change. Okay. So questions we ask individuals when we're helping them with their nutrition isn't necessarily what's the least amount of food we can get this person to eat to lose fat. It's more so what amount of food gives us a meaningful amount of fat loss while they still can train, they can perform at work, they can recover and sleep well and actually stick to the plan. Because that's way better than adjusting someone's calories. Let's say, for example, if they're at 2,300 calories and they're seeing progress, right? They feel good. Why drop their calories to 1,800 just to help them lose more fat? You don't need to do that. And that's what happens a lot of the times. We drop calories too fast. Now you're hungrier. Your training gets worse, right? Because if you don't have enough fuel, you're not going to perform well. Your recovery gets impacted. You're not sleeping as well. Your hormones are out of whack. It's not going to be a solution for you long term. And another thing that people forget is, hey, if you don't get to your goal after that calorie adjustment, where are you going to go from there? If your calories are already low, how much lower can you go? You can't be going on a 1,200 calorie or 1,500 calorie diet. It's not going to help you long term. So we need to be smart with the calorie adjustments, but also pair it properly with what you're doing, how you're exercising, what your lifestyle looks like. So nutritionally, our starting point is pretty simple. We need an appropriate calorie deficit. We need to eat enough protein. Then we need progressive functional training. This essentially means that you're training movement patterns, not just muscles, because these are the biggest tools, right? If you want to impact your body composition, training and nutrition go hand in hand, but we need to do them properly, right? If we're just eating healthy and just moving our bodies, you can get some results, but you're not necessarily going to get the result that maybe you want. Okay. So we want to make sure that we check these boxes. And when it comes to protein, a measurement that I like to use that's super easy to remember is 1.5 palm servings at 3 meals per day for women, and then 2 palm servings at 3 meals per day for men. Pretty close in terms of protein, but that half serving less at each meal does make a difference. This gives you a range. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but a lot of the clients that we work with don't have time to just track their food perfectly. So it's just a general guideline that we like to recommend that makes it a lot easier to hit your protein. Because what does protein do essentially? It'll help us preserve and build muscle, but most importantly, when it comes to weight management, it helps you feel full, right? And the key to maintaining weight loss and your body composition is trying to avoid hunger. right? If you're always hungry, it's going to be pretty tough to maintain a calorie deficit or even your maintenance. But if we can get you eating the right foods, say the right amount of protein in combination with the right amount of fiber, it should mitigate hunger. It should really help you feel more full. Okay. This is making sense so far? Yeah. Okay. Another thing that I want to mention is your body gives great feedback. Okay. Your body gives great feedback. So if you're losing fat and it's at a consistent, healthy rate, if your strength is maintaining, like you're not getting weaker in the gym, don't touch the calories. Don't reduce your food. I know you may want to accelerate the progress and see more results faster, but you don't need to, right? Those two metrics are important. Is the client losing, and are they maintaining or progressively getting stronger? If you see a decline in strength, or if you cannot get stronger, you may be in a too aggressive calorie deficit. So always monitor how you're performing, because that's what's going to make the difference between you getting to a goal and looking the way that you want or not. Okay. So, like I mentioned, calories matter. Calories are important. Anyone that says that they're not important is going to make things a lot more complicated than it needs to be. But that doesn't necessarily mean you need to weigh and track every single gram of food you're eating. Okay. We might initially teach you how to track because it's important to understand portion control. But most people don't know how much they're eating. In fact, the research shows that majority of people that have never tracked food underestimate their calories by 40%. So you may think that you're eating 2,000 calories, but you're most likely 40% more. So this is a huge range, right? It's a huge amount of calories. So understanding roughly where you're at will put you in control of your body. And that's essentially what we want. We don't want you to have to do certain things that you can't do 5 years from now. We want to make sure that what we teach you today is something you can do forever. Because it makes total sense, right? You want to travel, you want to eat out with your family, you want to have a client dinner or a business dinner. So we need to make sure that we're not avoiding these things, but we understand how to balance it. So what we do with a lot of clients is we teach them the 80-20 rule. It's very simple. 80% of the time, you're eating whole foods, so single ingredient foods. 20% of the time, you can enjoy yourself, right? You can eat out, you can enjoy yourself on the weekends. That's not going to be enough to ruin your progress. As long as you're truthfully on point 80% of the time, you will be fine. But the problem is sometimes we're leaning towards 50-50, right? 50% of the time, half our week is looking good and the other half not so good. So we need to work towards that 80-20. So it's not necessarily about you're not tracking your food every single day. It's, are you making the right choices majority of the time? And are those choices coming from single ingredient foods? If you're doing that, you're going to be in a very good spot for your body composition. Okay. Another tool we use with a lot of our clients to make sure that compliance is high is we create a floor and a ceiling. So what is a floor and a ceiling? A floor and a ceiling is essentially a strategy that we use to ensure that you have no 0 days. And a 0 day essentially means that you haven't done anything for yourself that day. We don't want that, right? We don't want to get you to work out 7 days a week. That's not the goal, but we don't want you to not prioritize yourself at all, like ever. We want to make sure you're doing something for yourself always. So a floor is basically the minimum that you can do on your worst days, right? Maybe you're super busy. You traveled that day or you worked 12 hours. The kids are screaming at home. You can't do anything that day. So what is the floor for that scenario? Maybe you bang out 100 squats as fast as you can before your head hits the pillow. That'll suffice, right? Maybe you go for a 5-minute walk before the kids go to bed, or maybe after they go to bed, whatever it may be, something that you can do that's basically bulletproof on your hardest days. Okay, that's your floor. That means you're not going to miss, even on the worst days, you don't miss. Okay, but on your best days, your ceiling is what can you realistically do in the best of circumstances, right? If you can realistically do 3 workouts per week, 45 minutes or 1 hour, that's your ceiling. But the only way that this works is if you're honest for both of them, right? If you're honest with the floor and you're honest with the ceiling, this will work really well. But where people go wrong is they say that their floor is 3 workouts per week and their ceiling is 5 workouts per week, but they're not even doing 1 currently, right? Don't be that person. Be honest with yourself. Put yourself in the shoes of your most stressful, busy days. And what do you realistically think you can do? Make that your floor. And then realistically for your ceiling, are you a 2-time per weeker? Are you a 3-time per weeker? Are you a 4-time per weeker? Really be honest and then stay true to that. That way you're never going to miss a day. It's not about being perfect when it comes to your ceiling, right? If you miss one of the days in the ceiling, sure, that's fine because you'll still hit your floor. It's really just about building a habit that allows you to do something for yourself on a daily basis. Okay. Okay, perfect. So we've covered quite a bit so far, but we want to make sure that we have different characteristics. Okay. When you're working with a client or when we're working with a client, we have different characteristics that we try to achieve. We're not just looking to just lose weight or lose body fat. There are things that we want to do. In this case here, we want to improve body composition. That's why we introduce a body composition-based nutrition plan. Basically, what that means is we're eating a high protein, nutrient-dense diet to improve body composition. Right? We're not doing any low-calorie diets or cutting carbs or anything like that. We want to optimize the individual's overall health so that when they get to their body composition goal, they look way better and their DEXA scan results are awesome. Okay. Functional strength training. That's going to be the best way to train to see an increase in skeletal muscle mass on your DEXA scan, but also to prevent injury. You don't need to train like a bodybuilder if you're not planning to step on stage. We need to make sure that the movements that you're doing inside the gym help you better perform outside of the gym. That way you're in a position where you're not fearful of injury. Right? Injuries are the worst thing. If there's one thing you take away from this webinar today, it's an injury can be the worst thing for your body composition goals. Why? Because that may be the only reason why you can't train. Right? If you're sedentary for the next 6 months or 4 months, that's going to be really, really tough for you to maintain your results. So we need to train smart so we don't get injured, but also to prevent injury outside of the gym. This is where structured mobility training comes into play too. Everyone's bodies are different. Right? Our body works in a joint by joint system. So when there's an issue at one joint, the joints above or below take a beating, just the way it is. So if you have tight hips and you're doing squats all the time, your knees are working harder than they need to because your hips aren't mobile enough. Same goes for, let's say, your knees. If you lunge and you have knee pain, well, there's something going on at that knee joint, which is now affecting your hips and your ankles. So it's important that we have structured mobility for each client because everyone has a different biomechanics and we need to help them where they're at. But it's important you prioritize it because just like muscles, if you don't train your muscles, they're going to get weaker. You're going to lose them. If you don't train your range of motion or your mobility, you're going to lose access to that range of motion. Okay. Conditioning and longevity. Conditioning and longevity is one of the most important things when it comes to living a long life. If your heart is not working the way it needs to be, and if we're not training the heart, well, what happens, right? It doesn't improve. But if we can train the heart, I like to call it hypertrophy for the heart. Hypertrophy just essentially means building muscle. Cardio and cardiovascular training is hypertrophy for the heart. We're getting the heart stronger. And a lot of people don't do it. They think walking 10,000 steps a day is cardiovascular training. It is not. Walking 10,000 steps a day is called non-exercise activities. This is something that you should be doing. I mean, you don't have to do 10,000 steps, just an arbitrary number, but this is just non-exercise activities. It's just how much your body should move on a daily basis. So that is not conditioning. We need to have structured conditioning in the plan so that we can make sure that your heart is where it needs to be and continues to become strong. That way, when you're 80 and you want to go for a hike with your grandkids, you're not struggling, right? You can do it. You have the cardio capacity. And then recovery and performance. Right? We have a recovery protocol for each client so that they can actually progress from the training. Because if you're not recovering, you're not going to see results, right? You can work out hard every single day, but if your sleep isn't on point, if you're not resting properly in between sessions, if you don't have active rest days, it's going to be very tough for you to see the results you're looking for. One measurement we try to aim for clients is we always start with sleep when it comes to the recovery protocol. So we take a look at how much are you sleeping? How many hours? What's the duration? And if the durations meet the expectation that we have, typically 7 hours, then we focus on recovery sleep. So what is recovery sleep? Recovery sleep is deep sleep plus REM sleep. We try to get that goal to about 50% of total duration. So if we can get the client sleeping 7 hours and their recovery sleep is 3.5, so deep plus REM, we're looking awesome. Like we've done a really good job. That's a goal that we try to do with a lot of clients. Of course, it's difficult. It takes time. A lot of clients can't get 7 hours of sleep, but we work with them daily to make sure that we can get them feeling better so that they can perform better at work too. Okay. So these are, I forgot to mention, thank you for the slides. When it comes to the training, these are the 6 movement patterns that we want to implement in the training. Right? I mentioned functional strength training. This is where we squat, lunge, pull, push, carry, and hinge. 6 movement patterns that every human should do. I like to call them the 6 foundational human movement patterns. If you can check these off, your workout is sufficient. You had a good workout. This is for, let's say, getting the most bang for your buck. Right? You don't have a lot of time. You have 30 minutes to go to the gym. You have 40 minutes. You want to figure out what's the best thing that I can do for that limited time. Do these. Okay. You don't need to do bicep curls. You don't need to do tricep extensions. Focus on these patterns and you will have a sufficient workout. Then from there, once you have these patterns in place, then you can focus on your isolation movements. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But when clients don't have a lot of time, we don't need them doing a 30-minute bicep workout. It's just not efficient for them. We need to get them squatting, hinging, pushing, doing as much as the foundational movements as we can with the time frame that we have available as well. Perfect. So we discussed the athlete shape, but again, these are some characteristics that we have for this webinar that I wanted to address. Is just really making sure that you have a tangible measurement of progress for what it means to get in athlete shape. And these are the things that we look at for all of our clients. Is the body fat coming down? Is the strength going up? Is the conditioning improving? Is the lean tissue either increasing or at least protected? Are your movement patterns improving? And are you recovering better? What the movement patterns improving is one of the things that I think is very important, because speed, or let's say movement, can hide dysfunction, right? So when you're in the gym and you're unsure if you're doing proper form, our coaches and myself will take a look. Our clients send us videos. We'll take a look at your movement patterns and we'll make sure that you're actually moving well, because movement can hide dysfunction, right? You can do a squat, but you may not be doing it well. So we want to make sure that our movement is proficient. And that's just another form of progress to get to the athlete shape that we described. Okay. And just some clients that I want to show you that have seen awesome results. These are 6-month transformations. And what we do is a before and after DEXA scan. So our guarantee, we use 5% in a 6-month period. Why do we do that? Because it's not our best result, but we know that it's a tangible number for you to start thinking, hey, I'm 25%, I can get to 20. I'm 20%, I can get to 15. Most of our clients can exceed it, but I want to make sure that it's something that feels attainable to you, but also is doable and realistic. Okay. So you can see Marcus here, down 9%, Stephanie down 8%, Matt down 8%. Trisha, this one was awesome. I really like this one because Trisha's weight stayed exactly the same. No movement on the scale. Photos look great. You can see the abs coming in. Body fat percentage went from like 20.5 to 14. Like really, really good. Then from here, we have Christian down 8%. This is crazy. The 8% in this case was about 35 pounds of fat, which for me was shocking. It didn't look like he had that much weight to lose. And then Kayla down 8% as well. So male or female, clients are getting really, really good results. But the best thing that we can do is essentially make sure that the program is working by looking at their skeletal muscle mass, their body fat percentage, and of course, the weight on the scale does help us see the trend, but it's not everything. Just like for Trisha, weight wasn't moving, but we could see, we did a 3-month check-in and we could see the muscle was coming up, body fat was coming down. This is kind of an example of what we could do and how the process could look like. Is weeks 1 to 2, we'll do our assessments. We'll send you in for a DEXA. We'll do our movement assessment. We do our nutrition and lifestyle assessment. We basically learn everything about you and what we're dealing with, including your schedule, so that we can understand exactly what we're dealing with. That way we have a baseline. Let's say we know you're at 20%. We know that your goal is 15%. We know that you travel every other week. We create a structure that will work for you. Then we get to work, right? We want to make sure that we can build momentum. The biggest way we do that is we start tracking wins. So the way that we get our clients on a momentum streak and starting to see these wins is we set them up with MNR goals. What are MNR goals? It's a movement, nutrition, and recovery goal. They're very basic, but if this client can do that for the first month, then we can start doing the exciting things. So your movement goal can be, hey, I'm going to hit 3 of my workouts per week. Nutrition goals, I'm going to eat protein at every meal. And your recovery goal can be, I'm going to have 7 hours of sleep. If you're checking those off in our app, for example, you're going to be building a foundation that allows us to progress you at a faster rate. And then all these things become easy, right? It's just about developing the right approach specifically for you. And then the last thing, after a month in, now we can optimize the strategy. We figured out what works for you. We figured out what you like, what you don't like, how your body responds. Because I'm not a genie. I can't just automatically know exactly what will work. Of course, there are times where we are wrong and we have to change things and readjust. That's totally normal. But if after a month we can see good progress or slower progress, we make adjustments to make sure that the progress is consistent. That's the most important thing, because we don't want to be in a position where you're 6 months down the road or 3 months down the road and you've made zero progress. We act very quickly, right? We take a look on a weekly basis. Is this working for you? Are you compliant? Where do we need to support you? And how can we make sure that we can help you move the needle faster? Okay. So this is just a kind of a demonstration of what we just went through as well. So the coaching program itself, what does it include? Well, the coaching program, how I would like to think about it, how I would want you to think about it is, when we created this program, I was an in-person trainer. I worked with hundreds of business owners, professionals, and people would come to see me 2 to 3 times per week to train with me. But that wasn't the problem that most clients needed help with. Most clients needed help after they saw me, because working out with me 3 hours a week wasn't enough to get them the results they're looking for. What are they doing the 156 or whatever hours outside of the gym, right? What's happening there? So that's where we started the Level Up Body Coaching Program. It's an online program. We create all of your plans for your training, nutrition. We hold you accountable, your recovery protocols, essentially everything you would need. And we hold you accountable to it. And we support you every step of the way to make sure that your results are not only faster, but also sustainable. That's the most important thing. So if you're ever in a position where, hey, you feel like there's so much information out there, you feel like there's so many different TikToks you've seen about workouts or nutrition, and you have no idea where to start, that's where we come into play. We take care of that for you so that you can focus on what's important in your life, right? Your family, your business, everything that you need to be focusing on, you can focus on. And then we're in your corner, supporting you every step of the way to ensure that you actually get to your results. And when I say that, I mean like guaranteed, right? I don't want to sound cliche or anything, but that's why we have the process that we have. We want to make sure that we can get you at least 5% down in your body fat so that you're in a position to feel comfortable, right? 5% can look very different person to person, but it can really be a life-changing amount of weight to lose. Okay. Perfect. So that's the guarantee here. You lose 5% of your body fat, or you don't pay. You can essentially apply to work with us. Of course, since it's such a specific guarantee, we do have a requirement for individuals that join the program and who we can work with and who we can't. And if that sounds like something you want to take part in, you can absolutely do that. You can go to levelupbody.com/DEXA and you can apply for this partnership, right? So it's something that not many people can do or companies can do because they don't have access to the information. But we actually have access to the information where we can work with you step by step. And when you implement the plan, if you're actually implementing the plan and we don't get you to where you want to be, then that's our fault, right? But that's why our clients get such good results, because the guarantee not only holds you to a higher standard, but it holds us to a higher standard too, right? So you come in, you follow the plan, we make the plans for you and hold you accountable to it, and that's it, right? And if it doesn't work, then hey, that's our fault, and we'll take responsibility for that. Very rare has that ever happened. I'll tell you right now, our success rate right now is like 92%. And the 8% that didn't make it through, hey, it happens. right? We needed more time. There's things that happen. That's okay. I'm happy to say that. But majority of the time, 9 times out of 10, a client comes through, they will make it to the 6 months and lose 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes 10%. And that's exactly what we would love to do with you guys as well.
Thank you, Andrew, for that. That was a great presentation. To be very honest with you, I mean, I know a lot, but I learned a lot from you as well.
Oh,
A
good.
couple of questions that came up, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. But so many people talk about macros, and I heard you say the 1.5 palms 3 times per day for women for protein
Yeah.
and 2 palms for men. Do you focus on macros through your program, or do you really just focus on that palm?
We absolutely do. So we'll teach you how to track macros. We'll show you exactly how much you would need to have. But that is like a floor and ceiling goal too. Best case scenario, you can track your food. We monitor your food and help you with the nutrition recommendations. On days that you can't, that you don't have anything prepped, then we go to the palm size servings and really help you maneuver those days as well.
Then another question that came in was what about alcohol? What's your rule on alcohol? Because obviously that's a lot of people's downfall, right? And so how do
Yeah.
you kind of approach that?
So alcohol, definitely there has to be limitations, right? If it's enough to get in the way of your results, then we have to have a conversation and try to reduce it. But if you can get results and continue drinking on a weekly basis, whatever that may mean for you, it's okay. Right. I understand that it's part of some people's lives and that's okay. But if it gets in the way of the results, then maybe we need to take a look at how much and try to reduce that. I don't think it makes sense to reduce it to zero if it's something you enjoy. Some people do that when they come in. They're like, I'm just going to not drink anymore or drink like once a year. That's fine. But if it's something you do love and you don't want to give it up, we can work around it. Know that it is a bit challenging depending on the consumption because it is high in calories, but there are ways to work around it.
Yeah, and there's so many non-alcoholic drinks out there anymore. I
Yes.
mean, I will say that's the one thing is I can go to a business dinner now and have a non-alcoholic drink and nobody knows any different, really. So it's a
Yeah.
good substitution.
That's what I'll
Yeah,
use nowadays too.
I know. And honestly, most of them have that same flavor. You just
It's true.
don't get you don't get all those empty calories. And then another question that I saw come up was you mentioned the app. So all of this is personalized, right? And they're just
Yes.
utilizing your app for tracking purposes. Can you just give a little more oversight about that?
Yeah. So we've been using an app for the past 5 years, and this app has been great to us. But fortunately, we're actually upgrading it next month. So we have a brand new app coming out. The purpose of the app is to hold you accountable, it's to organize your programs, and is to make things easier for tracking. It's not to, let's say, it's not a shortcut or anything like that. It just makes things easy. Because I don't want you to think about our coaching program as just an app. It's a service that we provide that makes the program easier, but it's something that allows for good communication as well. Right? You can message your coach on a daily basis. You have your training program there, your nutrition plans. We have an awesome community that you would get to be a part of as well. It just puts everything in one spot to help you on your journey to see results.
And I love that you have a 92% success rate. That's pretty amazing. And some of your transformations that you showed are unbelievable, especially the woman that was the same body weight. Just that,
Yes.
I mean, that's amazing. She looked great.
Yeah. And the most remarkable thing about Trisha was the fact that she wasn't sedentary. She was eating a very low calorie diet, doing HIIT workouts, but she was pretty plateaued. So what we did was we reduced the amount of sessions per week. We got her off of HIIT training and started to do some functional strength training, and we increased her calories. Now she was actually sleeping better, recovering better, her hormones were balancing out, body composition changed, but she couldn't break through. No matter how low the calories, no matter how hard she was training in her cardio workouts or HIIT workouts. But then when we started to focus on de-stressing her body, results were way better.
That was honestly just an amazing transformation. Well, I want to thank you. I don't see any other comments in here. So if you do, please raise your hand or shoot them in the chat. But we're going to be sharing this through our social media, and there were many people who were unable to attend who have requested. So we'll be sharing the application and we'll be sharing the recording with people as well so that you can follow up. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us. We can help you out, connect you with Andrew and his team as well. So I love it. I think that what you're doing is amazing and everybody needs to be a part of this. We all need to live a
Perfect.
longer, healthier life.
That's right. That's right. And it all starts with data, right? You know where you're at, then you have the game plan to get to where you want to be, and your retest to make sure that you got to where you want to be.
Exactly. Awesome,
Awesome.
Andrew. All right. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.